Reddit asks, people who've been caught in those, I swear it isn't what it looks like scenarios, what were you doing and what did it look? Handed my passport to the Canadian border officer when driving to Canada. Sir, why are you giving me money with your passport? Apparently I had kept about €100 folded in my passport for my next trip to Europe. A somewhat related story, a friend of mine used to keep a spare $100 in between the back of his license and the laminate layer. Back when licenses were printed on paper then laminated, he got pulled over for a really bad speeding offense that probably would have been reckless, and nervously handed over the license without thinking about it, and got off with a warning. A bit later he checked on it and the $100 was gone, so he unwittingly but successfully bribed his way out of a ticket. SOP in Panama. $20, unless you run someone over, then the C note. My friend just got back from a couple years living there for work. I was amazed at her stories of how well, I'm sorry officer. Maybe I could just pay the fine to you here, instead of mailing it in with a ticket? Worked. I drove a co-worker/next door neighbor to and from work every day. One evening we were sitting in the driveway and we were hugging in the car and my wife stepped out and saw us. What were we doing? Hugging, tightly. Why? Her boyfriend called her while we were driving home and told her that her dog was hit and killed by a car. I was just consoling her. Hugging doesn't usually involve hickeys, John. The good ones do. As a teen girl, I had a male friend who was gay but not out. His father was the traditional Southern type, so naturally both his sons were put in Boy Scouts, etc. We were hanging out one day and he told me he had to leave to go to a nearby church for his scout meeting or whatever. He asked me to come with him since they were going to have a slow day, and friends were welcome. We go and sit in the dark empty chapel while his group plays board games and stuff in another room. Everyone was just sort of doing their own thing. I had been in a car wreck recently and had been having frequent muscle tension in my left shoulder, among other issues. Frequently, my friend would offer to help me out. I'd take off my hoodie or whatever and he'd dig his knuckles into the areas under my shoulder blade while we talked. So we're sitting in the dark empty chapel talking about boys he liked, and he, like he often did at the time, offered to rub my shoulder while we talked. We hang out for a while, just laughing and bullshitting, and then head out of the chapel when it was time to go home. Vape. Neither of us considered how it would look for a young boy and a young lady to be walking out of a dark chapel laughing while she pulls back on her long-sleeved flannel shirt back over a tank top, while his father and pastor look on in horror and misunderstanding. Damien, if you find my Reddit account, I want you to know if I had to go back, I'd let your dad think I'm a all over again to keep your secret. Wow, not all heroes wear capes. I'm glad that you, coincidentally covered for your friend. The place I work has bathrooms with 3 stalls side by side, except the bathroom by the elevator. It's a single stall with 2 urinals beside it. It's rare that the stall is open, but one day I got lucky and managed to do my business privately. As I stood up to exit the stall, I spun the lock and there was a loud pop. The lock had broken and I couldn't get out. I waited 5 minutes for someone to come in so I could send them for help, but nobody came. Eventually I decided I was going to have to either go over the partition, or under. I wasn't about to touch the bathroom floor, so I opted for climbing over. Right as I swung my leg over the wall to the outside, the director of my site walked in to see me on top of the wall with a look like a deer in headlights. Most awkward moment of my life. My boss at the kennel I worked at found me squeezing through a doggy door to get back into the kennel after being locked out. Fun times. Perfect moment for a, "Sup dog?" Back in the late 90s I was working for a local newspaper doing pretty much any gig the editor/publisher didn't want to do herself. We were asked to do an ad for the new spa in town and they wanted a picture of someone getting a facial. My naivety about terms led me to click on a website that lists itself as having hundreds of facial pics just as my boss was walking in. I was just researching the thing I was going to do for you. You'll love it. 12 years old in the school bathroom. I had just started my menstrual cycle and was trying to clean myself up and insert a tampon. Enter a very rude and nosy girl who liked to peek in at other girls while I was doing that. For the rest of the school year there were rumors circulating that I f***ed myself in the bathroom that culminated in me being pulled aside by several teachers to talk about public decency. Even after it was made clear what I had actually been doing, no one spoke to the other girl about not being a peeping Tom. That is so weird. Why the F was she peeping into bathroom stalls and no one ever cares about it? I was coming home from work one day and realized I forgot my apartment keys and my wallet at work. I live on the second floor and felt reasonably comfortable that I could climb in through the balcony without killing myself in the process. As I was around halfway up, a police car cruised down my street and inevitably saw a man attempting to climb haphazardly up to a balcony. They got out and ordered me to come down. Long story short, I had to provide a boatload of email evidence and have the building manager confirm the apartment unit number to prove that I did in fact live at the property I was attempting to break into. I was let off with a warning that I was an idiot for attempting to climb 2 floors whilst wearing dress shoes and a suit. I did that drunk once. Got back from a night of drinking, and neither my key nor my roommates would unlock the door. After a few minutes of bitching about the apartment complex changing the locks on us, I climbed up to my balcony and got in through the sliding glass door. After that, I kept the slider locked, never realized how easy it was to climb up there. Also, turns out the lock was just old and broken. Apartment complex had a locksmith out the next day to replace it. A long time ago, I was a photographer at a small town newspaper. I was photographing a girls' volleyball game, and after the game, I asked the athletic director at this small high school for a current roster so I could match names with numbers on uniforms. She said sure, follow me to my office. This was a high school built in the 50s or 60s, so the coaches' offices were connected to both the boys' and girls' locker rooms, with no third option to get to the offices. You went down the hallway to either the boys' or the girls' locker room, and way before you turned the corner to go into the actual locker room, you turned right and went into the office cluster that was between the 2 locker rooms. But to the casual observer, you were walking into one of the 2 locker rooms. So I get the roster, thank her, and head back out to the main hallway, where there were about 20 to 30 parents of the opposing team waiting outside the girls' locker room to meet their daughters. I'm a 20-something dude with a huge camera dangling around his neck walking out of what appears to be the girls' locker room where their daughters were changing out of their uniforms. I didn't bother to explain, just walked quickly to my car so I wouldn't get lynched. What small town do you live in where the townspeople are alike? Is that barber's boy walking out of locker rooms with his camera again? Better lynch him. Had a blackout in college in our dorm. Lasted more than a second, so everyone freaks out, starts getting up and trying to shuffle to exits. I bump into someone, stumble, and grab her boobs as I steady myself. She starts laughing immediately, thank God, and I start laughing as a result, and so, do not immediately stop cupping them. Lights on. My buddy sees me basically feeling up his girlfriend, and she looks very happy about it. Yes, it really wasn't what it looked like. Had a blackout in college in our dorm? You really should cut back on the booze. Oh, wait, you mean a power outage? Both man, both. In school, we had this cool PN biology teacher, who tried new things while teaching. One of these things was bringing a video cam to a P session to film us, so we could watch our form from an outside perspective and analyze with the class. We were doing handball, I think. I was either sick or forgot my clothes, so I was sitting out on that class. Teach gave me the cam to record while he instructed my fellow students on throwing techniques. I was fumbling my way around the camera, fiddling with the zoom buttons and trying to get a hang of things. When I felt like I knew what I was doing, I started recording my fellow students. Later, we got together in a classroom and Teach showed the video I took without screening it beforehand. Big mistake. The first few moments showed me playing with the zoom. Unfortunately, I had been focused on the camera and not on what I was recording, so I had unintentionally zoomed in on my teacher's butt. I had filmed a 10 seconds close-up on my teacher's, admittedly formidable, behind, and it looked totally intentional on my part. My whole class laughed at me and my teacher gave me a funny look. Meanwhile, I was blubbering about how it totally wasn't what it looked like, that I was playing with the zoom button and more irrelevant things that nobody cared about. Similar story, had to do a video advertisement for a fake product for an English class. Had a friend come over to do the talking and we shot it under the carport near the garage window. We shoot it real quick and come inside. Dad comes by and says he needs to watch it in a very serious tone. I was mad because I couldn't possibly have done something to make him upset by doing homework. I had been so focused on my friend that I missed that my dad was walking past the window in his underpants while we were recording. He saved us both some embarrassment that day and my friend had a good laugh. Basically every time I closed a tab as soon as my mom got in my room without knocking, 'cause why would she? That's more exactly what it looked like. Well, not every time. While handing my phone to my then girlfriend in a foreign airport, I suddenly get a text from an unknown number saying I love you. Hard to explain that it was indeed a mistake. Well, was it a mistake? It was, really a wrong number mistake. Excellent prank. Need to send I love you to random numbers often. Throw in an, and I'm keeping the baby for good measure. That's all for this video, you made it to the end. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing so you know when the next videos are released. Thanks for watching, have a good one.